Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 281. I am Peter, and joining me, as always, is Matt.
Yep, I survived Thanksgiving. I ate way too much, but I am here.
Yes, I had no Thanksgiving, but I did eat a lot of Chinese food on Thanksgiving Day.
There you
So
go. That's the spirit.
we'll count it. I also went to the movie theater for the first time in over a year on Thanksgiving Day.
Ooh.
So,
I don't need your thoughts on the movie, but what was your thoughts on returning to the theater?
that was okay. Honestly,
Okay.
the only thing that upset me is that the lights didn't go off when the movie started, so I had to get up and tell them that the lights were stayed on. So that was annoying. But other than that,
Gotcha. Yeah. Was your audience good? Because I remember the first movie I went to see in the theaters was Kong versus Godzilla, and people forgot how to sit in movie theaters, and it was not a good time. Since then, it's been more or less good, but
well,
that first one back though. Oof.
it was me in the middle of the theater, and then there was two middle-aged ladies up near the back, and
Okay.
I didn't hear much from them, so it was pleasant enough.
Yeah, isn't that the best? That's when I went saw Last Night in Soho. It was just me and then an older couple in the very, very back, and it was like we had our own private screening, and that's just the best. I mean, for some movies, like more horror stuff or big budget actiony, you kind of want the crowd reactions, but I don't know. Like I saw the Raid Redemption in the theater by myself, and it was great.
Sure. I think horror works with no people though, because it's more intimate and like creepy. Like,
Yeah, but I like hearing the reactions on certain ones. Especially if the movie's not good. I remember one of the Annabelle movies. A guy next to me was jumping at every scare, and it was way more entertaining than what was going on the screen.
I'd rather hope the movie's going to be good though. I mean, I don't want to go in with a defeatist attitude.
Yeah. No, I go in every movie hoping it's going to be good. Except for the second Independence Day, which you forced me to see for our old podcast, and I remember falling asleep in the theater.
That movie was pretty dull, wasn't it?
Yeah, I remember ended up waking myself up from snoring, and I was like, "Oh man, what the hell? I missed 20 minutes."
Yes, but if you do want my thoughts on the movie I saw, I did do a review of Ghostbusters Afterlife on Male Fuzz Movies. If you want to go check it out. The short review is 6 out of 10. It's decent enough, but is nostalgia porn, and why can't we make movies that are just movies anymore instead of being movies about loving older movies, because that's all that seems to get made in Hollywood now. Anyway.
Yeah, I mostly agree. I think I liked it more than you did. However, we didn't need the baby puffs. Like, get that out of there.
That entire scene...
I hated it.
That entire Walmart scene where it's just product placement after product placement. And here, remember Stay Puft Marshmallow Man?
Yeah. Which makes no sense in the scope of the movie, because if you know your Ghostbusters, that came from Ray. Like, from the end of the movie. So, like, again, there's no connection. And then what Walmart listeners, if you've ever been to a Walmart that has a Roomba rolling around, I never have. So I was just like, why?
Well, here's a question. Do they sell Roombas, and did the Puff Marshmallow Mans just steal a Roomba off the shelf and turn it on?
So they do, but it made it seem like the ones they sell aren't operational out the box like that. You know what I mean? That one seemed like it was going about its business.
I don't want to defend it, right? I'm just disputing the potentialness of the Roomba existing.
That scene was the biggest problem I had with the movie. The rest of it, I enjoyed a whole lot. It felt like a warm hug. So,
here's the thing, Matt. Yeah. Ghostbusters is not supposed to feel like a warm hug. It's supposed to be cynical and characters who are greedy parasites, and they just happen to accidentally end up saving the world. That's the funny part of Ghostbusters, damn it. That's what makes them amazing.
As an Egon guy, I disagree.
Bill Murray is a greedy piece of shit in that first movie, right? That's what makes it so great.
All right, no much Ghostbuster talk. But
oh my god, this is Star Wars: The Force Awakens' fault. This nostalgia comeback sequel thing.
It is,
and it's all its fault.
I'm a little bit worried about Indiana Jones, but I trusted Mangold. So as long as the time travel stuff isn't true, we'll be good, because I don't need time travel in Indy. Period. But I trust in Mangold. So yeah.
Remember that moment that the guy was doing all the sword work and Indy just shot him? Yeah, I bet you're going to get reminded of that.
To be fair, that was Temple of Doom as well, which doesn't make any sense given that it's a prequel.
No, but
so, you know.
There's not a problem with doing one moment like that, but I guarantee you that'll be one in a sea of moments that actually directly pull on the original, or at least the original trilogy as a whole. Like, it's going to happen. Like, I am dreading the death of Robert Zemeckis because I know they're going to do Back to the Future, and it's going to upset me.
I hope he has a really good lawyer that can stop that, you know, because we don't. As much as I did enjoy seeing the DeLorean on the screen in Ready Player One, notwithstanding that movie, it was cool because I'd never seen that movie on the big screen. Therefore, I've never seen a DeLorean on the big screen. I don't need it.
I actually have seen Back to the Future on the big screen, funnily enough. But
yeah.
Oh yeah, screw Ready Player One as well.
Yeah, that's
bunch of nostalgia.
That book, I will fight anybody that tells me that book is good. That book is not good. It is a showcase of what I hate in fandom.
What's funny, Matt, is that we actually both watched the same movie this week. Randomly, we both watched Promising Young Women.
Yeah, I feel like you had an alert going, and it's like, oh, Matt watched a movie I haven't seen. Now I must watch the movie. You can't have one up on me.
It's been on my to-do list for a while, and
me too.
I finally, and I because I watched Moonlight this week as well, and I do a lot of horror movies for the Screams After Midnight podcast. I do a lot of sci-fi for the Atomic Cinema Experiment, and when I watch movies on the watch party on stream, we're doing Hitchcock movies just now, so we're doing good movies just now, but usually it's trash. Usually it's goofy stuff or whatever. So the actual I'm going to try and watch some good movies has just been sliding for a bit, so I'm making an effort. Moonlight was really good. Promising Young Woman was also really good.
I forgot Moonlight, and I was going to ask which werewolf movie that is. And then we said a good movie. I went, oh no, that's the one that won the Oscar.
Yes. So yeah.
Yeah. No.
But yes. Promising Young Woman, much better than Ghostbusters Afterlife. I'll just
well, they're completely different movies, Pete.
Doesn't matter. Much better.
Yeah.
It achieves much better what it's setting out to do than Ghostbusters Afterlife achieves.
Have you seen Love and Monsters?
I have not seen Love and Monsters, no.
I recommend Love and Monsters, especially if you enjoyed Spontaneous and The Babysitter, because it's the same writer.
I do enjoy both of those films. So that's
the heart of those movies goes into this post-apocalyptic journey with a love story in it, and I was very surprised. Like I'm surprised I didn't watch it sooner. So
yeah. Also, I died a little bit inside when I saw trailers at the theater because they showed me the Uncharted trailer, and I wanted to vomit all over the theater.
Oh no, I've yet to see that. So not you vomit, the Uncharted trailer. I've yet to see that too. But yeah,
one day, Matt, I'll vomit for you. And
thank you.
You can get the full. This is a DC Comics podcast, everyone. Welcome to the show. We talk about DC Comics every week, what we've read. Coming up on this week's show, we have Detective Comics 1045, The Flash 776, Checkmate issue 6, at least Matt checked that out anyway. No pun intended. Robin issue 8, Catwoman 37, Task Force Z issue 2. Matt also checked out Deathstroke Inc. issue 3, DC vs. Vampires issue 2, and I have a Patreon book. I'll be talking about American Vampire Survival of the Fittest issue 4. So that's what's coming up on the show this week. But before we get to the books, there's always time for everyone's favorite segment.
Pie.
It's not pie.
No? There's always time for pie.
I mean, I always love a good bit of 3.14. Don't get me wrong, but
nerd.
But no, we're here for the ComiXology top 10 at the time of recording, and it's a little bit of an infested top 10 this week because there's a massive Hawkeye sale on because of the TV show starting, and the first volume of the Fraction Azure run is $1. So I won't spoil it. It's number 1. Okay, I'll just say it. It's number 1.
and if you haven't read that, go get it for $1 and read it, and your day will be made better.
Yeah, and then the rest of the volumes are all $2 or $3 each. So easy enough to jump into that whole run because it's like, I don't know, 5 volumes, 4 volumes, something like that.
Yeah,
but
I think it's 4.
Yeah, so you can get the whole thing for under $10 if you want to go and read the whole shebang. And Haley Steinfeld's very good in that show, which is otherwise just kind of there.
I like for what it's setting up because it's doing things that's not from the book. I always like when they adapt. Like Marvel's pretty good at this when they adapt a story, but not beat for beat. So like Civil War, right? The story points are there now where the Avengers are at odds with one another, but they change how they do it in the book. So with Hawkeye through these first two, I like how they're telling the Kate and Clint story, but it's just twisted, so I can still have some surprises. Like the tease for the big boss of the Tracksuit Mafia, completely different from the book. And
and that character already has a spin-off TV show announced.
Yeah.
Which makes me so uninterested because it's like, oh well, we can only earn certain ways with that character now because we have to care about a spin-off later. I
don't know about that because that character is a great character.
More and more with Marvel things, I'm feeling that the plot in each thing is obligatory. The plot in each thing is not important. It merely exists because a movie or a TV show is supposed to have a plot. But the movie just exists to have the characters be there so they can be in other things later and to tease future things. Well, that's the main thing they're doing.
Normally, I would fight you on that. That I feel like Hawkeye is kind of standing on its own so far through these two.
Okay.
However, seeing what they were talking about with the next Captain America, basically undoing anything they did on the Captain Winter Soldier show about Sam having to earn the title, I was like, that was the whole point of that messy show, right? That's the biggest part that I got out of it. And now they're just going to kind of treat it like, oh no, the movies are a canon. And I thought
the whole point of this Disney Plus show bollocks was that these shows were equal to the movies. That's
what they started with, but I just feel like there's no communication. And I'm mad at Disney as a company anyways, at least through the theme park side. So yeah, it's just not,
Yeah. So
cool. Yeah. What's the top 10 though?
I wanted to rant in your presence about Hawkeye because I want to corrupt your positivity as best I can.
Oh no, I'm still going to be positive because I'm very positive for, again, I don't want no spoilers. The leader of the Tracksuit Mafia, what that character represents and what it might lead to has me very excited if that's the direction that they're going. If not, cool, we get another cool street level character. So
all right, yeah, so top 10. So number 1 is Hawkeye Volume 1. Number 2 is X-Men issue 5. Okay. Number 3 is Hawkeye Volume 2. Number 4 is Hawkeye Volume 3. Number 5 is Once and Future Volume 3. So I guess that's dirt cheap as well, actually. So I guess they're having a sale on those. Hawkeye Volume 4 is number 6. Then Once in Future Volume 2 is number 7. This is a really weird top 10. Obviously, I'm going to keep going and actually get to the single issues because they're the more interesting thing to talk about. So finally, number 8 here, we get a single issue. Amazing Spider-Man issue 79. And then Once in Future Volume 1, which is $1, much like Volume 1 of Hawkeye. So that's number 9. Number 10, our first DC book. Now, admittedly, if you're only counting single issues, it's really only like number 3. But, Detective Comics 1045
that would have been my guess.
Gets in there at number 10. So I'm going to keep going a little bit here just because I want to actually get to the DC books that are out this week, other than Detective Comics. So 11's Critical Role comic issue 2. And then A Dune Trade is number 12. And then Slaughterhouse 5 graphic novel is number 13. And then we get to Thor issue 19. Hawkeye Volume 1, this is the Kate Bishop Volume 1, which is $1. So also go check out that, because that's very good. By Kelly Thompson. So yeah, a lot of stuff on sale, but we do eventually get the new Hulk book is there, and then we finally get to Robin, and we get to Wolverine, The Flash, Superman 78. So really, really weird list this week.
Like you said, it was infested with these sale books. Wasn't expecting all the Once in Future, which is good. That's a good book. So I'd like to see the sales on that go.
Oh yeah, I'm sure somewhere out there a ginger popped a boner at hearing that.
His sounds more sad. He goes boo.
Did we just canonize the sound of Connor getting an erection as boo?
Oh man, a Donny Cates Hulk book. Shoot.
Interesting. I don't think I've fallen in love with anything that Donny Cates has done yet, admittedly.
No, but I know he does monsters and stuff well, because I remember, his Venom was pretty good, not enough to keep me going. I read the first arc, and I was like, this is fine, but he does monsters really well. So you think he'd fit in with Hulk. And in fact, his Thor, I got to stop pulling that Thor book. My shop's going to hate me, because I have not read an issue since 4. We're on 19.
Oof.
Yeah. I mean, I have them. I have up till, I think, 12.
Does the wife know about this discrepancy?
She does, but since I don't, buy them every time they come out, they just sit in my pull box, and then eventually I get yelled at. So by the shop.
Oh, so what you mean is eventually you're going to have to go in and buy like 15 issues of Thor in one go.
But what you do is you do one at a time or two at a time. So when I have a smaller physical week, I pick that up there. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go. That's your ComiXology top 10. It was a really wonky one, but it is what it is. Some Immortal Hulk volumes are on sale as well, which is nice. So cool. We will get on to comics then. So, Detective Comics 1045. This is Mariko Tamaki and Dan Mora. It is the final part of the Fear State tie-in arc.
Yeah.
Which largely revolves around the idea that Nakano's going to at least start kind of trusting Batman, or at least accept that Batman's presence is required.
Man, so I wish I was reading Tech before, because it feels like that's where this Nakano story comes from, right? About the partner, and that's why he doesn't trust Batman, because he feels Batman's responsible for the death of his partner. And I like that, and I just feel like it's kind of gotten lost in all of the crossover-y aspects of Gotham, right? From Joker War to Fear State. So I do like that's what Tamaki kind of focuses on with the relationship of Nakano and Batman here. And that there is a trust because Batman saved Nakano, and then towards the end here, Nakano gets to save Batman. I just feel like it's not a buddy cop situation exactly, but they have a tenuous relationship going forward, and I like that.
Yeah, it's a bit too imbalanced to be buddy cop, but I think it's a nice sweet sentiment to kind of end this sub story on, because it feels like Batman's relationship with Nakano has been more of a focus of detective, even though obviously it's been a factor in Batman as well. So having that kind of be what this tie-in gets to wrap up, it feels like it's still true to its own series as much as it is. If anything, it's more true to its own series than a tie-in. If at one point there's a caption that says this story takes place around Batman 113, which was not that was like 3 or 4 issues ago, so they're making it clear all of this took place early on in Fear State. This is not
concurrent.
So it pulls in the Bat family a little bit. They cast Dick and Babs is on the comms. I will say there's one panel of Babs where they're doing the whole the green glow of the computer screen on her, but she just looks like Poison Ivy because it's so strong.
I didn't hate it. I'm gonna be real.
But it's fine to kind of pull them into it a little bit. Basically, these parasites, the eggs are hatching all over the city and starting to grab people on their bikes and.
Yeah, the guy on the bike, I feel so bad. He got overwhelmed by a wave of vile larvae.
Yeah, and there's walls of it in the tunnels, and they're having to break out. And Nakano's demand to know what Batman knows about it. And Batman's actually pretty honest. He was infected before, and that's why he knows. He tells him about Hugh Vile. He tells him about all these things. And Batwoman's up doing stuff as well. But basically, they get up into the city. And it's basically the Times Square, if you will, of Gotham that they're in when they come up through the sewers. And it's all very chaotic. The monster... And the monsters kind of form one big monster here. And Batman's kind of getting chewed up a little bit. And he's trying to fight them off. And this is where, Nakano gets to... Well, at least tries to save him. It doesn't work, though. He pulls out a taser thinking, oh, he electrocuted the parasite off of me, so I will taser this big monster.
Yep.
Oh, shit, it barely felt anything because it needs a giant shock.
He needs more
which
amps, as Nightwing tells him.
yeah, because Nightwing shows up. He's stolen one of the magistrates like flying little orbs, and starts blasting him with electricity, which kind of saves the day. And yeah, I mean, ultimately, there's a great full page spread actually of Batman, just in the city sky at night, with it's like the setting sun behind him, I think. But yeah, at the end of the story is just Nakano is talking to whoever he's trying to figure out, because now he knows the magistrates like kind of played against them and what they've been up to,
right?
And basically just says we need to start making a better list of monsters to go after, because what he's learned with this trip with Batman is that there's monsters in the city that he hadn't. He kind of put everything on Batman and mass vigilantes, and he didn't really realize that there was so much other stuff going on in Gotham. And Batman kind of explains, look, there's basically something going on in Gotham all the time, right? It's difficult to keep it on top of it. So it feels like we've got a Nakano that's a bit more accepting. He even says at one point that the office. He doesn't say who it is, but he says they've got an associate that he's corresponding with or something like that. Which establishes that like Batman could probably give him some info now and maybe get info in exchange for certain things.
Which I like, because we've always had it just with Gordon, right? And sometimes Gordon and the mayor are at odds with Batman, but I like that it's Nakano here going like, all right, well, we can't be everywhere at once, so it's kind of nice that Batman has his people too, and you just got to kind of trust that he does have Gotham in his heart. You know what I mean? Like, he's not going to screw Nakano over just because Nakano doesn't like him. Because it's for the greater good. And I feel like Tamaki really nailed that sentiment there towards the end.
Yeah, I think it's probably the best ending I could have asked for out of this little tie-in arc. And we do have at least the big 10-week story. I think we've got a couple of... We've got an issue or two before that, but then we have the big 10-week story.
Well, it kicks off next week in the detective... in the detective annual, because I double-checked.
It doesn't start off weekly next week, though.
No, but that story starts next week.
Sure, yeah, but it doesn't go weekly until like January, though. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So we'll have one issue in December, and then it'll start properly in January.
I guess it doesn't start. It says Prelude to Shadow of the Bat, because I read the, because I want to see what we're reading next week.
So it's building up like the next issue of Detective probably is as well.
Yeah.
So I just what I was getting to though is I wonder if we're going to play with Batman's new kind of relationship with Nakano being a factor in the rest of this run, because given that it's something that Tamaki's went out of her way to set up, it feels like the sort of thing we probably will use as a narrative tool. So neat enjoyable issue. Back up as well, we had the foreman at the new Arkham Tower going crazy. Batman steps in at the end of the last part, so he's here at the start of this one, and basically just takes the guy down and makes sure he can't hurt anyone, and goes snooping around the rest of the tower and finds like a gas trap that's like crane toxin almost. It goes looking. He ends up having like a weird flashback where he sees his parents and he's seeing like the Joker talk to him in a cell.
Yeah, Martha opening up that door as she says go to bed was so creepy. Like, that was such an effective moment.
Yeah. It's interesting stuff. It really sort of it shows you that his mental state is deteriorating in the scene. But then there's this old guy who's like, this tower's unnatural, it needs to be taken down, and this is sort of Batman's coming out of it, and the rain's pouring. So there's a lot of I think what I really liked about that first part, and it's true again here, is that there's so much atmosphere and everything it's doing. It really feels like he's out in like a stormy night up in this like construction tower, and he's chasing this guy up the tower. And the end of this part of it is that Harley Quinn is sitting in the crane, operating booth, and is like, so she's here to also help take down the tower or something. It's not entirely clear at this point, but
yeah, I love that she's like, you probably thinking that I'm not here. But yeah, that's the beauty of this, is you don't know if I am or not. So let's take out this tower. So I do kind of like that. So even if it is part of the toxin, right, and it's not actually Harley, this is how Bruce thinks of her, right? Like, is she here? Is she not here? It's a fun little piece.
Yeah, I mean,
that's pretty good.
Does the old guy see her, or is the old guy also just in his head? Like,
Right? I don't know. I would be willing to bet the old guy is there just because of what we're establishing in the story about Arkham being cursed, right? Just the whole name and whatnot. And also the fact that this was Hugo Strange's building beforehand, might lend something into that. I'm not sure what exactly. So
yeah.
it's
Obviously,
pretty decent.
I mean, this is setting stuff up for future detective stuff, so you know that's cool. A lot of atmosphere, which is nice, and the art is pretty good. Not as good as the main story, but
and Mora,
definitely enjoying it. So it's nice. What are you giving the two stories?
So I'll give it a solid 8 across the board.
Yeah, well, I guess I kind of agree with that. I like the final point that he had, the Cano and Batman sort of get to in this, and it doesn't. I mean, I definitely think this is one of the weaker arcs of Tamaki's run, but like for a crossover, it actually has a nice little point to end on. It still feels super relevant for where her own story is going with the city and Batman and the Bat family. So that's nice.
I feel like the Vile stuff really ramped up, and then this feels like the epilogue towards it. Because how many issues was this? 2 or 3?
3, yeah.
The Vile larva, trying to escape and come back. So it does feel like a nice little epilogue on that main story.
Yeah, so that's cool. All right. The Flash 776, Jeremy Adams writing with Fernando Passarin on the art. So I read this, of course, and I guess the first thing, I'll just to sort of remind everyone where we were last time, we had Eclipso show up out of the magic spear thing from space, and then when Flash was getting his ass kicked, Fate showed up. Dr. Fate showed up and pulled him into a portal. So that's where we start off at the start of this issue. And basically, this is a really meta issue where Dr. Fate very quickly, in fact, it's the second page. So the second page, or the end of the first page, Dr. Fate's talking to Wally, and they're in, like, what is it? We're in a 2-dimensional causeway. That's what he calls it. They're in a 2-dimensional causeway. And Dr. Fate says, it's going to be up to you to guide us through. And Wally's like, me? How? And he's like, no, not you, Flash. And you turn to page 2, and Dr. Fate is coming through the panel and says, you, the reader of this book, our fate lies in your hands. So this is a meta book where Dr. Fate is constantly talking to the reader and asking them to, like, do things to help figure stuff out, and guide them through this interdimensional pathway. Wally freaks out when Fate shows him that there's a reader of a comic book looking at him. It's all very weird and meta. There's, like, monsters that chase them, and it starts getting into some weird stuff, one of which I'm going to complain about as a digital reader. So basically, they're getting swarmed by monsters, and Dr. Fate says, reader, you need to help us. It's up to you. Turn the book counterclockwise, and then you turn the page, and if you flip it, like, it's almost like you've, like, tipped the page so that all the monsters fall down this big crevice. The way this page is written is a little bit weird, though, in that the text is still in the right sort of way up, right, so you can read it properly, which is good, but you kind of have to start reading it sort of low down and sort of go up to the right, and I don't know if that was super clear when I first started reading it, because it's got panels at the top, and it kind of made me feel like I should be reading that across and then going down to that bottom big chunk, and that's not how it's meant to be read at all. This one worked okay, though. This is clearly a 2-page layout that's vertical, so, if you're reading a physical book, you'd have it flipped, and that's fine. The problem I had, though, is that so then more, like, baddies come after them, and they're asking for help, and Wally yells something, tilt it clockwise or whatever. It does the same trick again, and they end up falling through a giant hole into a big pool of water. Because you basically, by flipping the book, you're messing with gravity. Think of, like, Inception, when the van's turning and it's flipping the world. You're basically doing that as the reader. The one that bugged me, though, is that when they're in the water and things are going bad, Wally shouts out, turn the book upside down. Is that the book actually does flip upside down, including the text. And admittedly, part of this is that, like, my Kindle Fire, Like,
You had to lock the screen.
well, no, I tried to lock the screen and it wouldn't work.
Mhm.
So there is legitimately 2 pages of this book where I never read the dialogue because I couldn't. It was upside down
That's frustrating.
no matter what I did. And part of it may be a device like hiccup rather than the book's fault, but they really have to consider when they do these gimmicky things where they want people to turn the books around. Like, think of the digital reading experience and accept the fact that it's not going to work, so just have it be the right way, because it's annoying, right? It's just annoying. Don't do it. The first couple of times were fine because it still worked.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of it's fine, and the idea that there's some sort of big sea monster in the water, and they would flip it upside down so the water all pours away, and it's just the monster, and it gives them a chance to fight back or whatever. Like, and then there's a thing where Fate pulls out a book and says, it's these 3 sacred symbols, but we don't know what order to press them in. Reader, you must go back through the book and find out the order and then press them in the correct order. And I was like, I'm not going to do that, but cute. Very cute. And sure enough, that takes them to the next thing. So the last page of the book is they're in Gem World, but the Justice League Dark are all there. Not Wonder Woman, obviously, but the rest of the team. And no Man Bat either, actually, now that I think about it. But Etrigan's there, Detective Chimp, Zatanna, Constantine. And they're like, oh, we've made it to Gem World, but then they're like, sorry, Eclipse was already won, and that's where we end the issue. Honestly, this is easily my least favorite issue of The Flash of this run, and I'm not going to be too harsh on it, because I kind of get that we're going for this kind of fun, wacky, gimmicky read. But ultimately, this trip with Dr. Fate is all just one big gimmick, and there's not really much of a story advancement. Like, he literally could have just teleported them straight to Gem World, and we could have started the issue with this page, and it wouldn't have felt like the story was missing anything. So, I appreciate the effort, but this felt like a completely skippable, pointless issue. And I've been enjoying the run, and I'm still excited for more of the run, because I actually been kind of digging what this book's been doing with Wally. But, yeah, this was just a gimmicky thing. So, I can't.
Sounds like it.
I mean,
like when you had Doctor Fate addressing the readers. That's a fine line to toe, right? Like,
yeah, wasn't feeling it, and the art's really good. I've been enjoying Passarin's art on this book. I think it's really bold. It's got a nice, strong, thick line work. It feels just the right amount of cartoony for Flash, I think. And the big monster, the big sea monster and stuff does look good. Like, these things do look good, but ultimately it's just a bit of a gimmick of an issue. So it's kind of a shame. I kind of have to give it like a 5. So sadly, it's a bit of a blip. I don't foresee this being like unless like every issue for the next arc is going to be like a gimmick. Like every issue's got a different gimmick, then it might become a problem. But if this is just like a one-off thing before we get to the next proper part of the story, then I'll live with it. But you've been warned, creative team. You've been warned.
Yes.
Okay, Checkmate, issue 6, Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Maleev. Take it away, Matt.
100%. I have to be honest that I read this as I was falling asleep, and I don't remember much of it because it did not stick with me. But this is the final issue. I'm gonna pull it up here and kind of go through it. But where we last left the Checkmate, they were in the basement of the Hall of Justice, and Leviathan was making their move, and Talia turns on the team. So she fights Manhunter and gives her a run for her money before the rest of Checkmate help Manhunter out. But Talia gets taken away before they can actually defeat her. And the Mark Shaw is facing off against Demon Rose and Lois when Superman comes up, because Lois says, she whispers Smallville, and the Demon Rose, her brother, shoots at Mark Shaw. He gets injured and he gets teleported away, where he's bleeding pretty bad. But he's trying to convert. Shaw's still trying to convert Lois and her brother. He's like, you don't understand. I'm trying to save the world. But Superman comes in and basically pulls Lois away, and you see Shaw teleports that his tech is kind of failing him, and Leviathan flips on him. So basically, they let him die of his wounds as his tech is going haywire, and then Checkmate decides that now they have to deal with Talia reforming Leviathan in the way that it was before, because whatever Shaw was going to do wasn't going to work by those methods. And it still feels like they have moles. So Superman goes up to the Leviathan base that has now been, basically abandoned by Talia and them. And basically only the Metropolis Guardian was the one that still believed in Shaw. And he's holding Shaw's body. And Superman, or not Superman, as Superman's talking to him, where he tells him, let me get him some help. What's his name? Man, the colonel. It's Trevor. Steve Trevor's basically running everything over. That Mark Shaw's dead, Markovia's fallen, everything's secure, or so they think. But Leviathan is evolving fast, and that Checkmate, in order to counter this, they need to basically be what Checkmate was before, which is on the outset of the government. It's like they're not run by the government. They need to be a checkmate on them. So Waller shows up, of course, and says that that she knows who King is, Mr. King. And are you ready for this? Right? My original theory was that it was, Brian of Markovia, Geoforce, wanting to get Markovia back under his control. And it's not. Waller reveals that King is Commandy. From the future, coming to stop whatever Leviathan had done. So out of nowhere, Bendis has decided that we're going to do time travel-y stuff, and that Commandy, for whatever reason, has left as he's a grown, and that he's come back. And I'm wondering if this ties into the Legion of Superheroes stuff, that we're going to get some timey-wimey. And again, there's just another chapter in Bendis's, his ultimate story, I guess. And that, Waller is like, you saw some outlandish stuff in your time, so bad it made you drag your old ass back here. To do one last thing to save the world. And, that now Checkmate's going to directly answer to the Justice League. And that's good because Arrow's kind of running all of this, and that Lois is no longer part of Checkmate. She has to be on the outside. And then it cuts over to Talia, and she's addressing the new Leviathan, and that, we're going to get back to what we were doing, because Shaw's weakness is that he was too soft. And that if Shaw was too soft, what is Talia going to reform them? So now that's what Checkmate's worried about. And that she takes them up to what looks like Nanda Parbat, but it could be another city up in the Himalayas, and that she's going to introduce all the people to the Lazarus Pits. And then it ends with Superman wondering why Lois's brother looks just like their son, and that's weird. And he flies off, leaving Lois to look at him, or leaves with Lois, with Leonardo Lane looking at them at the Hall of Justice. Overall, I just wonder what the point of this whole thing was, because it was, Bendis built up Leviathan as his ultimate threat with Mark Shaw, only to throw him to the side, and now to do whatever. It kind of just reset. Like, he built up Leviathan just to reset them to be Talia's agency. And I'm
what got me is I was sort of half listening to what you were saying there.
yeah,
Is that you started talking about Leviathan, and it
yep,
just sort of felt weird. I was like, weren't we done with Leviathan like a year ago?
we were. And that's when this book was supposed to come out. And I don't know if the art got
True.
behind. The art is the strongest thing. I'm not digging Bendis's spy stuff, I guess. Like, sure, it might be a little bit closer to actual spy things, but the Checkmate I'm familiar with is like superhero spy agency with Rucka playing kind of with world government stuff. And I just feel like this version of Checkmate is this group of heroes that have ties to intelligence and whatnot. And they're just kind of there. And I don't get what the point of bringing back Checkmate was if we're not kind of, even playing with that. Like, so we have Bones, who ran the DEO, who would be an ultimate fit to work with Waller, right? And they have that structure, it would seem, as Checkmate did. But this is just kind of like a series that had no purpose. Besides introducing Leonardo Lane, who's now showing up in Justice League. And I still don't understand what the whole Snowman's Ticket thing is. I'm sure there's going to be more revealed. I did catch up on Justice League, and somebody stole the Fortress of Solitude right from underneath Superman. That kind of ties into what they were trying to do here in Leviathan. But it just feels like them being out of sync is messing with the overall story. If this had come out before the Justice League had started and we'd gotten to know, like, we have this whole mystery of the whole point of Lois's brother, and then got to, fully introduced to him in the pages of Justice League, I don't know if it would have landed better, but it certainly didn't in this direction. And just kind of sad because I was so excited for Bendis to do things, and now it just kind of feels he's not, like in baseball, it's like he doesn't have his fastball anymore. And it's just kind of sad to see him struggling, I feel, to tell these coherent stories where I just feel like Bendis, from what I've read in the past, he's a lot better at it. So I just don't know. I'm going to give this a 6.5. And that's mostly for the art. I'm thankful that it's over. Like, like I got to this book and went, I have to read Checkmate. And it wasn't even that I couldn't finish. Like, I had to finish it. It was issue 6. So
that's always the sign. See, if you buy a bunch of books, you get a pile of books for your week, and if there's a book or two that you're looking at and going, oh god, I need to read this now, stop reading it. Like, you're done. Like, it's, I think it's a harsh lesson everyone who gets into reading comics on a monthly basis falls into. But hey ho. All right, Robin, issue 8, Joshua Williamson writing with Gleb Melnikov on the art. We have the big fight between Damien and Connor Hawke. So this is mostly a fight. This was a very quick read, it has to be said. We have the Lazarus Pit. For the first time, things are, well, I don't know if it's the first time. I'm sure people will find examples, but at least they say it's the first time that something's coming out of it rather than being put in it. And that's kind of what we're building up to, and it's basically feeding off the deaths that are happening, during the tournament. But we go up, and it's kind of like everyone's sort of like, wait, why are Damien and Connor just staring at each other? Like, they're not actually fighting yet. It's like they're waiting for the first move. Like, they're trying to suss each other out.
Yep.
Who's going to move first, and what sort of tactical advantage can they get from that? So they fight, and there's pages and pages of them fighting. There's reactions. There's a lot of speed lines. It's very fast moving. It flows very well, which is good, because if it is going to be mostly one big fight scene, it should. Damien at one point jumps off another guy in the like a competitor who's not in the fight.
Have you ever seen that gif of Seth Rollins doing that back on the Indies?
Oh yeah, he jumps off the big fat guy.
Yeah. It reminded me of that, where he's just part of the fight now. I did like seeing all the characters around them kind of rooting, and you get like, there was a "This is awesome," which made me think of wrestling with the "This is awesome" chant. Which I wonder if Williamson. It wouldn't surprise me if you find out that Williamson's a wrestling fan, just because this seems so much like a wrestling story that's been booked. Down to the final 2 competitors at the tournament, and it's a whole lot of fun stuff. And
it gets to the point where Damien, like, he's definitely going to lose, and Rose and the others are like, no, he's like, Damien is losing this fight. And Connor actually says to Damien, like, why are you putting up a fight still? You've only had one death. You can die in this fight and you'll be fine. So, why are you putting yourself through this extra punishment? And Damien, as expected, does not back down. And Connor very kind of easily just snaps his neck. And
that whole sequence there with the hand movements and that Connor Hawk is so calm and collected. And he's just like, I don't want to do this, but you're forcing me. And I think it came up really well in the art because I don't think there's even a lot of dialogue there.
No.
Right? It's a lot of the motion.
It does this great thing because when they first start fighting or when they're staring at each other, you see like drawings of like a hawk and a robin in the background. When Damien's neck gets snapped, there's like a dying robin like behind him in the art. It's just a really nice touch. And this, the rumble starts, the earthquake starts, the and basically no one's getting allowed to leave. Like, she, Mother, whatever her name is. What's her name?
Lazarus.
Is it just Mother Lazarus?
I believe so, but it is Damien's great grandmother at this point.
Oh yeah, we know that, but like I'm just.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I think it was right, Madam Mother.
Madam Lazarus.
Hey.
Madam.
No, it is Mother. I know. I'm gonna look. You keep talking.
Is it not Mother Soul or something like that?
Oh, there you go. I knew it was something like that.
Yeah.
Soul. Yeah.
I knew Lazarus didn't sound right.
No, but because when Connor wins, she announces that the League of Lazarus and the League of Shadows are going to be joining.
Yes.
Once again.
They have made an alliance to spite Ra's al Ghul. They're burning all the boats so no one can leave. And it's all this. But the end of the issue is that Damien gets up and is like, nope, the tournament's not over until I say it's over. I'm at full strength now. I've been completely healed because I've been resurrected. But Connor Hawk says, but no, you idiot, like, I'm here because I'm the one who can stop the demon. Because that's what's coming out of the pit, it's the demon.
Yeah, so that's how they achieve immortality is the winner gets possessed by the demon of the Lazarus pit. So it's kind of a no-win scenario.
Yes, but
right?
Unfortunately, right after he says that, the final page of the issue is the demon ramming his hand through the chest of Connor Hawk, presumably killing him. Although Connor Hawk only died once or twice, so
this is not his final death, because that's what they keep saying is you get 3.
Yeah,
right.
So I think he's still good to come back. So the demon looks like a big Hulk-looking dude, but he's got like an evil like mask on, one of those kind of like cult like satanic things with horns. Like a ram horns, but with like a Shao Kahn from Mortal Kombat style face.
Yep.
Is the best way I can describe it. So the idea that Connor Hawk had like a sort of noble intention, even if he's in over his head. And you know what? If it's going to take the whole team of kids to band together to fight the demon and win, that's kind of a nice story. If that's where we're going with this.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and it feels like that Rose and Flatline both have already made that decision. And we'll see if they can gen up everybody else that's on that island. Because you got to remember, you have all the best fighters minus Cassandra Cain.
Yes.
On this island.
I have to admit, every single time they say like everyone here is like the best fighters on the planet, I'm like, Cassandra Cain's not here though.
So in my head though, that was Mother Soul not wanting to deal with the spawn of Cain, right? And just deal with that whole headache. So she didn't get an invite or whatever, and yeah, because Shiva's not there either, right? Like, I feel like they deliberately went after certain people that I felt like they could manipulate. And you can't do that with Shiva.
I don't think anything would make me mark out more if they got to the finals of this tournament and Damien says, you know what, I have to admit, I'm not going to win this, but you're wrong. Not all the best fighters in the world are here. Yeah. And then he introduces Cassandra and she just beats the piss out of whoever's left. Whether it be Connor Hawk or whoever, I don't care.
It's one of those, two move fights.
Yes.
Just boom, boom, and she, who's next,
Just, it's perfect. It would be perfect. I get why it's not happening, but it would be perfect. So, this progresses nicely. I think they treat this fight between these two as the two best fighters. Right? It feels like the big fight. The action is nice and fun and easy to flow. I like the reactions of Rose and the others kind of getting worried and rooting a little bit, but being concerned. Connor trying to talk Damien down, and then ultimately sort of the main point, which is no, Connor was going to try and take on the demon, but maybe he's in over his head, and it's going to take them all to band together.
And I like that with Damien, the reason that he's taking all this punishment, he's like, I got to see if the darkness wins, right? So he still has that guilt from Alfred, but he also has that guilt of being half Al Ghul and half Wayne, and so he wants to see if, pushed to his limit, what side wins. And I really like that as a plot point for Damien at this point.
Plus,
because
narratively as well, it's just as simple that now Damien and most of the kids are on their last death. So now the stakes are real. Now the deaths actually matter. So that's really smart.
Yep.
So good issue. What are you giving it, Matt?
I'm giving this one a 9. This is my favorite book being put out right now.
Oh, Matt's got a new little mistress with staples.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it's a 9. I think it's really good though. I'm going to go with a solid 8. But I'm having a lot of fun with it. So it's an easy read. Every issue is such an easy read. Yep. So that's Robin issue 8. Catwoman 37, Ram V, and I've not written down artists because there was like 3 or 4 of them.
There's 3 of them, but right off the gate, I'll say that they balance the art duties well. It never is distracting. So I know Braga's one of them.
Yeah, I wasn't super distracted. I will admit it didn't bother me too much, but it was notably multiple artists. So this is basically Catwoman and co. They're trying to save Alleytown. They're trying to get Ivy out of Alleytown. So it's obviously set before last week's Batman issue, which makes sense. And all builds up to the big long con here, which is we know that Riddler and Penguin were plotting something against Catwoman, and the whole plotting is that while they're fighting this, villain lady that clones herself or whatever, now there's 2 of them. Everyone's working together, try to get Ivy, out on this truck, and Riddler has actually got it rigged so that there's people with guns. There's the Penguins waiting for them, and they try and steal Ivy and kidnap her. And Riddler basically goes to confess this to Catwoman, to rub it in her face and be like, "You stole from me, Penguin, so we are getting you back." And Catwoman just smiles and says, "You know what? Every long con, you have to have a mark who believes in what is too stubborn and too so."
And Eddy, it was you guys.
Yeah. So and of course we know Clayface is on her little team, and we've not really seen him for this issue or last issue. So sure enough, the Ivy they've actually got is Clayface. So Clayface hulks out and starts beating the shit out of everyone next to Penguin.
Fantastic.
It's a wonderful little moment. It really is satisfying. Really good stuff. Whereas Ivy's still staying in the same hiding place, and then then Harley and the Gardener go back to get her, which makes sense because they take her to Batman and co.
Yep.
Next, well, not Batman himself, but you know what I mean. Batman.
No, they take her down to Queen Ivy, and she reunites with herself and becomes the Ivy that we all know and love.
Yep.
Well, I know and love.
So neat stuff. Ghostmaker sort of comes in to help with the fight. Obviously Ghostmaker we don't love as a character, but it's fine. He's an established person helping the Bat family right now, so whatever.
No, I know, but it was just it was treated as this hooray, the cavalry's here, and I'm just kind of like, it's Ghostmaker. Come on.
Did you notice when it went into sort of the epilogue mode when Selina's kind of talking about stuff? Did you notice there was a street sign that said "Is John Paul Leon Street"?
I did, and usually I'd be like, okay, that's too clumsy. However, with this, it's a nice tribute, I feel. Especially knowing he was supposed to do that issue of Batcat, right?
Yeah. I feel
and whatnot. So.
I feel like normally you want those references and homages to sound natural. This one I don't think it sounds natural, but I think that's okay because in this case this person just died, and I think this one's meant to stick out. I think this one's meant to grab your attention and go, this is not a normal sounding street name. It's meant to be no, we're giving this tribute to this artist. So I thought it was sweet. But Selina basically says, look, I can leave Alleytown now. I've built up the kids. I've built up my allies. I can I hope that me and Bruce get back together someday, and I hope all this. It kind of ends in this really positive spot, and it's the idea that the book, so much of it is talking about how Selina's alone, but she's not alone. In the final panel, because keep in mind this is the last issue of Ram V's run, the final panel is like, these like this team of villains that were helping her, the kids, Shoes, Clayface. It's her little team, and it's like no, she's built a community in Alleytown, so whatever.
Yeah, it's her own little section. I like that, and I like that other writers can pick this up now. Like if you want to go through Alleytown, you have Leo, you have Cheshire Cat now. Even the detective version of Clayface, I'd love to see him pop up.
It's almost a shame though that it is ending Ram V's run, because I kind of want to see him play with some of these things that he set up with more. So I mean, we'll see what the next run does with any of this stuff, if anything. It will be kind of sad if we read the next issue and it feels like it's kind of reset things and she's more of a loner again, or if it's kind of ignoring a lot of stuff. That will feel quite sad and might be a bit of a turn off, but this was a nice end. I mean, I do kind of wish that the run didn't end with the 3-issue tie-in to Fear State, but at least this issue in particular ends in a really nice, beat that feels like it is sort of saying, hey, this is all the things that Selena has built over the course of this run, and these friendships, this community. That's a nice sentiment to end on, so I ain't too mad. I
like that. That last panel is really kind of perfect. Like it's almost like their curtain call, so it works.
Yeah, good stuff. And I guess we're saving the Shoes and Cheshire Cat like meeting and reunion and realization for later
somewhere. I said this, and we'll get there when we get to vampires, but I'm loving that the Arrow section of DC it's kind of been put away for a while, but I feel like there are these like important supporting characters that are popping up, right? Like you have Ollie in Justice League and Checkmate. You have Canary and Deathstroke Inc. right now. You have Cheshire and Shoes in Catwoman. You have Connor Hawke and Robin, and they all feel ultimately important to those stories. And even though there's no Green Arrow, Black Canary book going on, I do like that there seems to be a spotlight on that section. So if we can just keep that up, I'll be happy.
Sure. What are you giving Calvin?
I'm giving this 8.5.
Probably not a straight 8 for me. The tie-in elements of it do feel it feels like a tie-in, I guess. Yep. But I do like the long con payoff and the ending and the sort of just the summary of what the run has been. I like all that stuff quite a bit. So I do wish it was one artist rather than 3, but hey, it is what it is. So cool. Task Force Z issue 2, Matthew Rosenberg writing with Eddy Barrows on the art. So last issue they went in to try and stop Mr. Freeze with the Lazarus pills, and it ended with like Jason being stuck in ice, and I think it was zombie Arkham Knight who was crawling towards him like, oh, it's time for a munch. It does quickly resolve that, it has to be said. It gets past that fairly quickly. Bloom does appear to have abandoned Jason, but he's actually just stopping Freeze, and he comes back.
What did he do to Freeze though? Because he rammed those Lazarus pills down his throat, and Freeze is gone. Like,
I mean, we see a lot of Lazarus pills in the air. I don't know if he rammed them into his face or if he just like.
I don't know what he did to him, but I like the idea of Bloom being this monster that can become unchained and then to hide goes back into himself. And I almost feel like Bloom's the actual villain of this story.
Oh, it may end up being, I can see that.
And we'll get there. Like, this is just unleashing his monster. But I love that I love how this feels like a B horror movie at times. Like that scene with Arkham Knight coming after a frozen Jason. Like that's straight out of a silly zombie movie.
Yeah, he basically electrocutes her for a bit, but then when Bloom comes back in, he pours out some of the pills, which attracts her away, and she eats those instead. So there you go. One of the things we find out in this, actually, when they get back to base, it keeps this running joke going where the lady who runs this place keeps like bumping into Jason when he comes out the shower. But one of the things we learn is that they actually have to intentionally watch the dosage of Lazarus resin, because if they give them too much, they'll just be alive again, and they don't want that. They want zombies that'll follow their orders.
Right. And we found out too that as long as most of the brain's intact, they can just regrow the body.
Yes, which is actually kind of traditional zombie rules in a way, because you got to shoot them in the head. That's the rule.
Right. Because at one point, when they're yelling at Jason over the comm, they said, do what you have to Arkham Knight, but keep her head intact. And that was the first one. You're like, oh, okay. And then we see them regrowing Bane and Man-Bat, and that comes out, and you're like, oh, okay, well that's interesting. I mean, that fills in with the with the Lazarus Pit. We've seen like kind of body parts just go in and then come back out, fully grown people. So
yeah, it's fun stuff. But then he runs into Arkham Knight, and she's actually pretty much human and alive. And basically, to like fix her, they pumped her so much that she's actually kind of normal again for a bit. And she says it'll wear off, but for now she's actually kinda, and it actually kind of feels that they're not. I won't say flirting, but it does feel like there's a bit of a spark.
There's a connection there.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that's intentional, because isn't Jason the Arkham Knight in the video game?
He is actually, yes.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if that's a little meta commentary from Rosenberg, that he's like, oh, hey, look, he's flirting with the Arkham Knight. But I do like that because it does feel real, right? It's like, this is Astrid Arkham, she has this whole legacy that she's trying to get away from. Jason has a legacy that he's trying to get away from. So, of course, they're kind of kindred spirits. So I do like that.
Yeah. So they've got another mission to go out to, and Miss Hobart is coming with them. And it turns out that she actually has another side to her, shall we say.
She's a shadow demon. That when the lights go out, the demon comes out, and I'm like, okay, this book. Connor not liking this book is prime Connor, where you're just like, just have fun, man. Like, I don't know how long this is going to last, but I'm having so much fun. Like, it's not the best book, but I am entertained.
Yeah, a lot of fighting with was it the Cobra cult that they're fighting, and there's a lot of chaos. Like, there's a big hole in the floor at one point that Bane falls into. Just a lot of stuff. But eventually, when the lights go out, like you said, the woman like turns into like a devil monster. She's kind of terrifying.
That's why I said a shadow demon.
Yeah. And yeah, she gets all kind of weird and creepy. Like, even her lettering turns into like sort of like monstrous text. Like the hello, like that kind of thing. But they turn the light back on. She turns back into normal. But they're there to actually find their new team member. And the big like surprise at the end is that it's actually Deadshot. Who shoots Jason in the back when he gets up out of his box.
I love that in his most primal zombie form, Deadshot still shoots first and asks questions later.
Oh dear. Yeah, maybe telling Jason that who they were looking for was already a zombie might have helped. Like,
right?
Because I think he's. I mean, I suppose maybe he should have assumed it was another zombie, given what the team is. But still, maybe say, hey, it's it's a very dangerous person who's now a zombie. Maybe.
I want to know what Cobra was going to do with Deadshot. Right? Like, is this whole zombie thing part of the Cobra cult and their dark magic? Is this just the Lazarus resin? Is it a combination? Like, what were they planning on doing with Deadshot? That's what I want to know.
Because they did have him in a coffin, just sort of as they were doing some sort of like at least a speech, if not a ritual. Yeah.
Yeah. Which Cobra, if you've read comics for as long as I have, Cobra are the ultimate guys for you to send your team to beat up.
Yes.
Because the Cobra cult leader's going to monologue.
Yeah, and then occasionally they'll send some fighters out to beat up Daniel LaRusso.
Yeah, they will, and they'll all sweep the leg.
That was a Karate Kid reference for anyone who didn't get it. The villain dojo is called Cobra Kai. It was a very specific reference, but roll with it.
No mercy.
I mean, as far as I had fun with the book again. Like, it's not a must read, but it went in quick. I had some fun and chuckles at the various moments. Bloom honestly is kind of entertaining in this so far, and I dare I say I kind of like the chemistry between Jason and Arkham Knight. So And I'm curious to see what they do with Deadshot. So
Yeah.
I think Connor is being overly harsh on this book, but yeah, not bad.
Yeah. As long as it stays entertaining at this level, I'll
Yeah.
be happy. It's a very low stakes book too, because like you can throw Bane down this hole and you just know like, oh, zombie Bane will be back.
Yeah, yeah.
And then on top of it, you have the whole Lazarus resin kill switch that if they want to bring Man-Bat or Bane back, it's just like, oh, they overdosed and now they're back. They got the dosage wrong or whatever. So I do like that. I don't know if that's editorial. I don't know if that's Rosenberg, but it has a nice little backdoor if you want to bring characters back.
Yeah, yeah. And for some of them who are kind of turned to, like, Man-Bat, for example, who was kind of redeemed by the time he died, like,
yeah,
maybe there'll be a conscious choice to, like, give him more, to wake him up by someone,
Right. Well, now that Jason has 100% more holes in his body, I wonder if he's going to get the the Lazarus resin treatment and seeing how that affects. We'll get like a first person view through that. But yeah, man, Rosenberg, like I had a friend that was big on Rosenberg when he was over at Marvel and his independent stuff. And I get it now. Like it's not setting anything on fire, but he is consistently good. Like I've been entertained more than not. So just as long as it keeps this level, I'll be happy.
Yeah, what are you giving it?
I'm going to give this an 8.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to go as high as that, but I think it's a solid 7. Like, I'm having fun. It's a good book.
Yeah.
So
I'm also a sucker for Eddy Barrows' art. So, and yeah, the zombies look sufficiently creepy. That scene where Bane and Man-Bat are on the table, and it just looks like a mad science experiment, I thought looked really good.
It does make me a little nostalgic for that early Detective Comics run in Rebirth, Yeah. That's what I think of when I think Eddy Barrows more than anything.
Yeah.
So, cool. That is Task Force Z issue 2. Deathstroke Inc. issue 3. Joshua Williamson writing with Howard Porter on the art. What's your thoughts, Matt? You read this.
Yeah, so I thought we were going to get, like, from the way that it ended last time, Cheetah has this kingdom called Chitara, and I was like, oh, we're going to get Black Canary and Deathstroke going into there. This opens up with, turns out that the Queen of Fables, are you familiar with the Queen of Fables?
No.
She's just meta so I became familiar with her through the Harley Quinn cartoon. But basically she's this meta that can turn stories into real life. And here in Deathstroke Inc., she has a side business where if you need to, if you're a supervillain and you need to get away and kind of recharge, for a price, she'll create a story for you to go live in. And that's what she's done for Cheetah. So this whole land of Chitara is a story of her own where Barbara Ann goes in there and she's a princess and she assumes the kingdom. And by finding Queen of Fables and looking for Chitara, Black Canary is like, well, I'll take in Queen of Fables, Deathstroke, you head in and take on Cheetah. And so we get, when Deathstroke enters this Queen of Fables story, he automatically becomes a knight. He's missing his guns. He has a gigantic sword and a suit of armor that matches his suit. And he decides he's going to go in. And as he goes in, he runs into this, all of these cat people that make up Chitara. And they start offering him side quests to go do things like in a video game. And he, the mercenary part of him's like, I kind of want to go do these, but I'm here on a mission. I got to go first. And he learns like this kingdom isn't just Cheetah's story, is that they talk about when he's like, well, where is she? I'm going to go kill her, or I'm going to go bring her in. Half of the people are like, yeah, no, she abuses us and she takes advantage. And she was once a fair queen. And now she's become, an evil queen. So part of them wants to help him, but as he goes into the castle, he storms it, takes out all 100 of the, the people, and ends up apprehending Barbara Ann. While he's doing that in Chitara, Black Canary and Toyman go back to Trust and realize that things aren't exactly what they seem, and that the whole reason that Toyman's working with them is to have the stolen bat tech, and that's kind of how they buy him off, because he at first agrees with Canary, like there's something more going on, and they start talking about her mom, and that her mom was kind of similar to her, as like, yeah, she was with the JSA, but she had her own stuff. And you see this painting of her mom with a bunch of other heroes in the Trust headquarters. But what sets Dinah off that something's not right is that the paint's still fresh. So it's as if they're creating this narrative. And the leader of Trust comes up and tells Toyman's like, hey, you need to stop digging or else we're going to pull your Batman toy access. And he's like, oh, okay, I forgot. Canary trails the head of Trust, and she has a Libra suit. And Libra was this character that was brought in around, I want to say, Final Crisis, that's all about balance. And the leader of Trust is like, yeah, we're going to bring balance to the multiverse. And Canary is on the phone with Babs and Dick about all of this because she's undercover there to find out about the Batman, about the stolen Batman tech, and that they wonder if Deathstroke, what he knows, if he's just going along with it, if he's just being a dirty mercenary. And as Canary's talking to them, Deathstroke appears over her shoulder and looks like he's ready to strike, and that's where it ends. Really fun series. Williamson's just, you can tell, having a ball with everything that he's doing here. It seems like this might be playing a little bit more into his overall story with Justice Incarnate, just because of with this whole balancing the multiverse and whatnot with the threads and what Deathstroke knows, and if this Deathstroke, because as far as we know, Deathstroke's still in Chitara when this ends, and so what he does here towards the end, like, is this him? Is this someone else? But Dick or it's Bab says that she's gonna have to take Deathstroke down if they can't trust him. And yeah, it's just, the art is great. All the stuff in Chitara looks fantastic with the fantasy aspect. At one point, Deathstroke rides a unicorn, which is weird because he basically manifests it. So it's kind of like, well, what the hell's going on with Slade there? It manifests via a rainbow. And the whole book opens on what looks like an old style storybook, which kind of recaps Cheetah's origin, which, of course, if you want a good telling, you go to Wonder Woman issue 8 from Rebirth. But but yeah, no, I really enjoy this book. So yeah, I'm gonna give this an 8.
Okay. DC versus Vampires issue 2, James Tynion IV and Matthew Rosenberg writing with Otto Schmidt on the art. So what's interesting about this book is that we just set up the fact that Batman got some information at the end of last issue. Last issue was Andrew Bennett. It was him telling his story with the twist of Hal Jordan already being a vampire. So this issue was like, okay, here's what the book's actually going to kind of be like as we go forward, because Batman calls in the Bat family to a meeting, right? At least most of them. And I mean, there's a scene at the start as well with Anton Arcane getting killed by Hal Jordan. But
I do love that it's very much the Arcade from early Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
And he's monologuing. It's like, who's ever there, just know. And Hal takes him out without any issue. Yeah, it's fantastic.
But we cut to the mansion, and Dick's showing up, and Barbara's kind of like sunbathing, but in her, I mean, she's not really, I mean, she's just kind of going for a nap, I think, but she's just lying out in the deck chair, and there's a bit of banter, and Damien's there, Tim's there, Cass is there in her Batgirl outfit, and Alfred's alive. So that's kind of, it goes back to what I was saying last issue, how you had the Wonder Twins in the Hall of Justice. It's kind of like, it's kind of loosely based on recent continuity, but not just a little off.
It's kind of like the best of continuity, right? Whatever works. Which in a book like this, I am more than fan. Same with like Deceased. Well, it's whatever you need it to be.
Yeah, one of the things that I like about this though is that Batman brings up the Mad Monk, which is a story. I'm sure there was maybe other versions of it, but the version I know of it, which was the Mad Monk, was the sequel to Batman the Monster Men. It was the what's his name, Matt something, Matt Wagner.
Wagner.
Yeah. And it was like, oh, here's a couple of like early Batman stories post year one. Like that was the idea of those stories, and It was Batman encountered a vampire basically, right? And he says here that this mad monk was his first encounter with the supernatural. So I kind of like the idea that they're pulling on this and saying, okay, this is almost like, what if the ultimate downfall of the DCU was vampires? So we're going to actually try and tie in things from DC's history to like sort of set up their understanding of vampires in the context. So they're all getting cups of tea or whatever, and what I kind of dug about this is it's actually a little bit later, but there's a moment later on where Damien spits out it's hot cocoa he's got because he didn't want tea
and marshmallows.
Yeah, and he spits it out, and he's like, "Did you poison our drinks, father?" And he's like, "No, I just made it with holy water to check you weren't vampires." And then Damien's like, "Alfred, may I have more cocoa? Mine spilled."
Yeah, the mine spilled broke me. Like I was like, "Oh man, this is such spot on writing."
Yeah,
for Damien.
this was good Damien writing this issue. Obviously, it does intersect though with some other scenes. There's a scene where there's a bunch of B-list villains hanging around talking about what's going on.
How dare you call Brick B-list, sir?
Did you just hear the sentence you said? You're right. How dare I? C-list. C-list.
Yeah,
You're quite right.
Also, Cheshire is there too. I think she's a little bit more than B-list.
Yeah, I'll be honest, there's the dude here that just looks like knockoff Lex Luthor, and it wasn't until someone said his name that I went, oh, that's who it is.
Everyman is knockoff Lex Luthor, if I remember right.
Okay.
That was in 52 where he's handing out superpowers.
Okay. Okay.
And yeah, so I thought this was Gizmo from the Fatal Five. And then I realized this is not the Fatal Five. Like, because you have the big strong dude, you have the redhead girl, you got the bald guy. And I was like, oh, and then I realized, oh no, that's Brick. And I don't know who the girl with red hair is.
But they're talking about, the villains going missing in the past couple of weeks. And Green Arrow steps out of the show. Because I thought this was going to be another Green Lantern comes out and kills them all kind of scene. Yeah. But Green Arrow steps out and says he's not there to fight him. But he does say that one of them's a vampire. And it turns out to be Everyman. And we get a cool action scene as he lunges at Oliver and he fires an arrow. And it dusts some, not unlike the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He dusts midair, and it's a really cool little sequence. So I think we said last issue that Green Arrow being a vampire feels like a red herring, right? Yep. It feels like, no, Hal was the vampire. Oliver's going to turn out to be someone who's already kind of hunting things and tracking things down.
I like though that the narrative point is we're going to have a showdown between Green Arrow and Green Lantern, the hard-traveling heroes who are always opposites. And here, there's the vampire hunter and the vampire. And, oh, man, really good stuff.
Yeah, and there was some fun debating between the Bat characters here where they're talking about, well, if these vampires are real, if there is this stuff going on, because they're a little bit skeptical, still, but like, well, if this was going to happen, taking out the villains first would make more sense because they hide a lot of the time anyway, so we wouldn't notice until it was perhaps too late. So there's a bit of back and forth, and there was like, okay, well, who else would they target? Like, and Batman says, well, it's not just who would they kill, but who would they turn? Like, who would they turn into a vampire? So it's like, well, they'd probably want to kill the magic users and the telepaths because they could expose them. But who would they want to like turn? And so there's some interesting debating going on. It's like, who would they infiltrate hero-wise first? And they say, well, Titans, Outsiders, Birds of Prey, like, the Justice League would be too hard, right? Batman says that. It would be too hard for them to infiltrate the Justice League, and of course, he's a fool.
Yep. Because that's who they got to first, right?
Yeah.
It's Hal. And then, but I do like that page where you have, Damien with what looks like the Titans, and they're taking out something. And then you have the Outsiders and the Birds. It's a real fun page. It's Otto Schmidt being able to flex his art muscles,
and it's a nice transition as well because it ends in Justice League, and then that actually leads into a scene at the Hall of Justice where Jaina is actually worried because if you recall last issue, her brother was put in a blender.
Yeah, he really took the form of water to a new level.
He was put in a blender and drank like a smoothie by Hal. So worth mentioning, and you'll notice here that Hal offers to like take her somewhere, and like, oh god, he's going to murder her too.
But she, she stands up for herself. But I do like the Booster Gold because it's very on brand, where you know, she's like, I can't feel him anymore. And Booster's like, yeah, maybe he need a break from, you know, being felt by his sister. And I do love that the entire Justice League looks at him like, bro, that's insensitive.
Yeah.
He's like, what? So like they spend so much time together. Am I the only one that thinks it's weird? I can't be. Like again, voice for Booster is very spot on.
Yeah, and then we get to the part where Batman has tested them all with holy water in their drinks to make sure that they're all still human. With the, I mean, that Coco, like the way he throws it into the plant and then immediately asks for more, it's just wonderful.
Yeah, I also like that when you know this and you think back, like Alfred trying to, you know, telling Barbara because she's complaining about being tired, and he's like, well. Miss Gordon, you just have some tea. It'll pack a punch.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Batman makes him all hold a cross as well, just to really be sure, because you know he's Batman. But he's like, hey, so here's all the sort of your vampire slayer weapons. And I do like that Dick sort of brings up, like, wait, so we're killing now? And Batman's like, well, they're vampires. They're already dead. It's not killing.
I feel like that's an asterisk. You know, like still, like if you can. If there's a cure for vampirism, right?
I mean, that's a big. I mean, this is the thing, though, right? You know, obviously, I like to reference Buffy a lot when vampires come up, but that's the logic in that show too. Is that vampires are undead, so it's not murder, right? Whereas murdering a human being is a big deal. Like that's something you don't cross the line and do.
But I do love that he's like, you can't kill them; they're already dead. And then cut to Davian with it.
He's like, yes,
so cool.
He's like, green light, baby, green light. I'm on. So. I dig all this gearing up. I dig the planning. I like Alfred intentionally taking a sip of the tea. Just like, you know, I trust that was an oversight in your part. And Bruce responds with, "No, I had the boiler. You know, like blessed. So you had a bath last night, and if you were a vampire, you would have just burned to death."
You know, but so like after seeing what we have with Green Lantern, I'm a little bit untrusting on some of these things, and I think that's the great thing that. Both Tynion and Rosenberg are doing well here, is there is a sense of paranoia, right? Like, I double-checked everybody, but then I would think, like, well, Cass, right? She wears that full suit. We didn't see her take a drink of something, but then we see her holding the cross.
Yeah, I presume that it didn't show you in panel, but she did take a sip with everyone else,
Right, but there's that sense of paranoia that it could be any of them.
And well, they pulled that great trick last issue where Hal was out of the sunlight, but it's only because his Green Lantern, bubble could protect them. So, you know, all that stuff's fun. The final scene of the issue, though, is a really sad scene where Hal's invited Barry out for a chat on some, you know, beach somewhere, and is like, hey, we've been friends for a long time, and if I was ever going to do anything important or big, I'd want you to be a part of it because you're my best friend, Barry. But unfortunately, you know, I argued for you, but the others, my master, because he references his master a couple of times, so there's clearly like a main vampire baddie, but he's like, my master says no, because of your hunger, you would actually just kill everyone too quickly. Like you would drink the world dry. So unfortunately, you can't be turned. And he smushes Barry's neck. He kills him. He kills the Flash, and he says, "I'm so sorry, Barry. I wanted to conquer the world with you." And he's crying blood as he says that. So this is like this really sad thing where he still obviously has some of the connections that he had as a human, but obviously he's evil now. So we have killed Barry Allen off in issue 2 of this. That's where we're at with this.
Yep. Which I was wondering how that was going to work, because once we got to Ollie, and we know he's one of the Slayers now, I was wondering how they're going to play off with Flash, because if someone's going to notice Hal not acting like Hal, it's going to be Barry.
It's very notable that so far the humans that are in on it are just humans. Like, and Batman even says, like, they're going to go after the metahumans because they're the ones who are going to be strong enough to fight them. So it's interesting that the Bat Family and Green Arrow so far are the ones that are kind of picking up this fight.
Right. Well, and I wonder how something like vampirism would affect Superman, right? Because he gets his powers from the sun.
Can it even, would their teeth go in? Like, I don't know.
Because what you talk about with magic is that it's not that Superman's vulnerable to magic. He's as vulnerable as everybody else is. So you got to wonder what kind of magic's at play with the vampires. But again, would the vampire, let's call it virus, even take hold in his system because of the sunlight? You know, he's like a living solar battery. So that's an interesting.
Part of me thinks he would just blow up.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, or even with Wonder Woman, the whole, would she be able to be capable of deception, being that she's kind of the embodiment of truth?
I feel like she would have to conveniently stop touching the lasso. Like,
yeah, because she can't lie. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. So there's a lot of play here when it comes to the Justice League.
Hey, that may be how they find out. But Hal, what if I mean, I don't want to bad movie and all that, but what if we get like he sits on the lasso without realizing kind of moment, and that's how he reveals what he is now. Kind of, I don't know.
It's a bad movie moment, but that's like one of the best moments in that bad movie. So, take that what you will.
So yeah, no, this is a lot of fun. It's playing with things. Yep. I'm definitely not mad. The idea of Dick, Babs, and Cass all being prominent characters, and Damien's writing in this is very good. Hal's been a really good villain actually so far.
I feel like a segment of the comic fandom would, they've believed he's a villain for so long that this is just them,
Plus, the staking with the arrow like midair, was really cool. So.
Yeah, so cool. Yeah, Schmidt kind of is the perfect artist for this.
Yeah, Joey is. I don't know if he ever did an American Vampire, but he does a very similar thing with the faces. The American Vampire did. Yeah,
it's Albuquerque-esque.
Yeah.
Where they go from regular to monstrous real easy through his art.
That's very good. And again, just to compare it to the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer, that way their face would change. They'd be normal humans, but then it would morph into the vampire face. Like you kind of feel like it's doing that on the panel, which is really nice.
Yeah.
So, no, cool. What are you giving DC versus Vampires issue 2?
8.5.
I am going to concur with the 8.5. So, nice stuff. Which will take me on to a Patreon book. So every month on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, our patrons, one of the higher tiers, will get to make myself or Connor read a book. And I am reading or working through American Vampire, and I have done since the start. And this particular issue is American Vampire Survival of the Fittest, issue 4. We ended last issue with the scientist, the doctor, taking Cash and Felicia down into the caverns where the ancient vampires were sleeping, and he wants to wake them up. So this issue starts off with a extended flashback. It's basically the doctor, was it Pavel, telling the story of how he came to understand these beings and what these statues are. And he tells a story about how he got drafted to go to the Museum of Natural History, or whatever the exact title is, in London. And he is brought in, and he doesn't understand why he's there. And he sees this giant, Egyptian statue, just like Anubis or whatever, but it's a vampire, right? And it's the idea is that they've found a new god, right? A god that Egypt was scared of, and it intentionally buried this tomb statue over in a really desolate place where it was never really meant to be found. There's the idea that vampires got all the way back to ancient Egypt. So a lot of good mythology kind of implied just by this thing existing and him sort of analysing it. But it turns out it's not really a statue. The sunlight that hits its shoulder kind of makes a sort of mold, instantly, every day. And it's like, oh no, it's like it's reacting to the sunlight, like a vampire might. So really, really interesting stuff. And when he gives his findings, mysteriously the next day it's been torn down and taken away, and clearly some vampires have come in and taken it. So for whatever reason, all the vampires that are actually in existence don't like these ancient vampires. They want to kill them. They want to stop them from coming back. And that kind of sets up what he's going to come up with in the story, which is they do get a vial later on from the other undercover agent that we encounter, but this seems to be what he thinks is the cure. He's not really necessarily made a cure that will fix a human who's been bit by a vampire. What he sees as the cure is that these ancient, monstrous size vampires will go around and murder all the vampires, and that's the cure. They will kill them all, and therefore, bing bam boom, no more vampires. That's his logic. But he sounds kind of crazy. They're not ready to kind of accept this, and they fight a little bit. And unfortunately for them, the Nazis show up behind them, and it's like, here you are. And they name them as well, so they clearly have been onto them for a little bit. and they knock them out, and they wake up in a cell, and Cash tries to say like his goodbyes. He says, "Look, I hope we make it out of this, but the odds aren't good. So, I want to say a few things." And there was a couple of interesting, she doesn't let him say goodbye, but when he starts talking about the cure, and he tries to tell her that the vampire part of her doesn't make her evil, and she's like, "Yeah, but you want to fix your son?" He's like, "Well, yeah, because my son's a child and he's paused in time in this state. He can never grow. He can never be smart. He can never experience things. If my son was like you, he just had vampire blood in him, I would be the proudest father." It's actually a really sweet moment. It's like, it's not the idea that there's any vampire in him at all. It's what he literally is just
Right.
this little monster who can't evolve and grow and
Right. It's just Gus.
have a life. So it's actually a really good character beat. And in comes the Nazis. They've beat up the Doctor a little bit. They've brought in a few of the vampire squad who are going to feed on them now. But then the big twist is that one of the lead Nazis here grabs the solar gun that was introduced last issue and kills the vampires and unchains our main characters. And it turns out that he's actually the undercover agent who sent out that the cure was here in the first place. He rips off his swastika and he's like, "Let's get out of here now." And he actually doesn't go with them. He ends up sacrificing himself so they can leave. But he does give them a vial, implying that there is some kind of cure, or at least some chemical to test, whatever it may be. And he actually fires a solar gun at something in the room that like triggers like a big explosion and kills a bunch of vampires. And they're trying to escape on a motorbike, are Felicia and Book. Felicia, Book, and Cash, I should say. And the Nazis like, these Americans, they're actually a little bit better than we thought, but not that much better. Let's go kill them. And just as they're about to go after them, there's a rumble. There's a rumble underneath, and the final page is that at least some of the giant monster vampires, the ancient vampires, have awoken, and they're coming. So, I mean, if nothing else, we're looking forward to some great carnage in what I think is the final issue of this miniseries. Unless it's 6 issues, but I thought it was only 5. I could be wrong though. I'll find out when I get to the end of the next one. But really strong stuff. I think this issue, it's a little lopsided in that the first third of it is a little bit slower because it's a very, very dense flashback with a lot of narration from the Doctor. But the mythology that it sets up is super interesting, and the idea that there was secret, like they thought they knew all the Egyptian gods, but there's actually this secret vampire one. Like, that's super interesting. That's a cool bit of mythology to drop in there. And then once it gets to the rest of the book, though, you actually have this really great character payoff and this growing relationship that's forming, romantic or otherwise, between Book and Cash. And I think that moment plays so true, and the way he kind of defines that there's nothing wrong with her and that she just shouldn't really care about a cure for herself. Like his son needs it, she doesn't really. At least not necessarily. I mean, it's her choice, obviously. If it exists, it exists. She can take it. But it comes off as a really genuine, sweet scene that pays off on the thing. And the ending's just exciting. Like, the idea of, like, we're adding more lore to this. We're adding, like, okay, there's ancient vampires now who modern vampires are scared of. Like, they're trying to kill them while they sleep because they're scared of having to fight them. Now, admittedly, it does raise the question, though. Okay, these big ancient vampires, okay, they're going to kill the vampires potentially, but what? That doesn't mean they like humans. It doesn't mean that once they've killed all the vampires, they're going to turn around and go, okay, it's buffet time. Like, so there's definitely an unknown element there. There's a danger, an intrigue, but also a bit of fun of like, okay, some of the Nazi vampires are going to get some comeuppance, and there's no part of that that's not fun. So obviously the art's very good. Full of shadows, full of all the things. I will say that the color palette in the flashback is suitably warmer. It's got that kind of, glow to it to make it feel a bit older. Because I think it's like 1915 or something like that, they say. So it's like before or during World War One time. So good stuff. Yeah, not surprised. It's another strong issue. 8.5 quite comfortably, I would say. Mm-hmm. So that's American Vampire Survival of the Fittest issue 4. So nice. But that'll take us out the part of the show where we pick our favourite stuff of the week, favourite panel/moment, favourite cover, favourite art, and of course rank our top 5 books of the week. So Matt, what you got for panel/moment?
I'm gonna go from Robin, and it's that page of Connor Hawk deflecting all of Damien's stuff, but it's all done through, it's pretty dialogueless, and you can kind of see the emotion, and he's gonna do what he has to do.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go for DC versus Vampires. It's tempting to go with the Coco because it is so good as far as Damien writing goes. But I think I'm going to go with the Oliver dusting the vampire with the arrow as it's jumping towards him.
It's a good one.
It's such a good sequence. It's kind of the fun you hope to get from this. If someone says, "Oh, we're going to do DC Universe with vampires," it's kind of the sort of moment you're hoping for.
Mm-hmm.
So it's living up to its potential so far, which is great. Best cover of the week. I had a couple picked out. Obviously, there's a what do you call them? Behermo cover for Detective, variants, which is very nice. But I will say that there's 2 variants for vampires, and for once, like the Mattina one's very good, but I actually kind of like the Supergirl one by Warren Lowe. It's got a little bit of that digital art style that I don't always like, but I think the kind of like the mistress vampire look they're going for with her actually looks kind of cool. It's just a fun like cover that, I mean, Supergirl might appear in this series, she might not, but it's just like a fun poster basically. I think it's kind of cool. I saw that and went, you know what, that's kind of neat. So I'm going to pick that.
I saw that one. I figured that's what you would go for.
That's something different. What you got?
I got the Frisian variant for Catwoman for the obvious reasons. It's Ivy.
If there's a Poison Ivy OnlyFans page, I'm sure Matt will have signed up by now.
What do you mean if? There definitely is.
there's probably like 10 cosplay accounts that specialize in Poison Ivy. Oh dear. All right, what you got for art? Best art of the week.
So this one's kind of tough because it's a pretty solid week because I did like the art in Robin. The best thing about Checkmate is the art. Deathstrokes by Howard Porter is pretty good, but I am going to give it to Schmidt for Vampires. It is head and shoulders above.
Yeah, I'm probably giving it to Schmidt as well. Although I think shout out to Dan Mora on Detective for me. It's kind of, I think this describes this week in general for me, not just the art, but it's kind of like a really solid, dependable week, but not a standout week. And I think that's kind of how I feel overall about the week, both in terms of art and just in terms of overall quality. But I'll also go with Schmidt for Vampires. Sorry, so top 5, Matt, go.
All right, so number 1 is Robin, 2 is Vampires, 3 is Deathstroke Inc., 4 is Tech, and 5 is, I'll give it to Catwoman over Task Force Z.
Cool. My number 1 is DC versus Vampires. My number 2 is probably Detective Comics. My number 3 is Robin. My number 4 is Catwoman, and my number 5 is Task Force Z, I guess. Yeah, just leaving Catwoman off as a... Yeah. Oh, well, actually, also leaving... No, not leaving Catwoman off, leaving Flash off, sorry.
There you go.
Because it was a weak issue. So, but yeah, there you go. So, solid enough week. Like, not a week that I'm mad that I read comics, but definitely not a week that was like, oh my god, there's like 3 like super standout books this week that I need to rave about. Although DC vs. Vampire, I think is a strong enough number 1 though. So, there you go. I will tell you what's coming next week from Detective Comics. Wait. Okay, yeah, that's weird. It's a weird. Yeah, this is weird. So the books are actually coming out on the 1st of December, but it's kind of like a 5th week. Kinda.
It is, yeah.
It's an odd week.
There are going to be things that I don't get to because there's a lot of annuals.
Yeah, I left Animal Man for next week. I might be regretting that after I read this list of books. So we got Batman 2021 Annual Issue 1. But this is actually the Ghostmaker conclusion, so this is actually an easy skip for us, so that's nice.
I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad about that.
Yeah. Detective Comics 2021 Annual, that's a lead into the big story coming up, so that's a definite read. That's a must read, that one. Nightwing 2021 Annual, which, you know, if
it's Taylor.
It's Taylor, so I'm reading it. There's no doubt. Action Comics 1037, which was pushed from this week, so yeah, obvious.
Can't skip that.
Yeah, Wonder Woman 2021 Annual. That's a maybe, because I am reading the book again, so I'll have to read what the annual is.
Yeah, and it seems like it has some big, ramifications, so it feels like it's not exactly the next chapter, but it will fill in some things.
The Joker 2021, that's a lot of annuals. Robin 2021 Annual.
Can't skip that, though, because it's one of my new favorite characters in Flatline. It's her origin.
Is it a Flatline issue? Okay.
It is.
Neat. Batman Detective issue 6. Oh, yeah, I feel like issue 6 got delayed a bit, because...
It did, and I think it had to do with printing.
Yeah, but there's a bigger gap for that one. Justice League Dark 2021 Annual issue 1.
You can skip, I cannot.
Yeah, I can skip that one. Wonder Girl issue 5. Batman Fear State Omega issue 1. This is basically the finale to Tynion's Batman, so that's a must read. Teen Titans Academy issue 8. Maybe Connor will read that for us. Human Target issue 2. Oh baby, that is a must read. That's probably the most interesting conversation we're going to have next week. Justice League Incarnate issue 1.
Gotta get that. That's kind
of
me.
That's kind of a must read. Wonder Woman Historia, the Amazons issue 1. Do you know what? Sadly, that might be a skip just because of how busy the week is, even though obviously it's interesting.
I think this is the Kelly Sue book, and I really want to read it.
Yep.
But it's a busy week, and I don't have the time. Oh man, it's Jimenez and Kelly Sue.
And it's a big issue as well.
It's massive. It's 72 pages.
Yeah, it's not short. So I think that's going to get skipped just because of circumstance, which is a shame.
Yep.
But and then there's Gotham City Villains Anniversary Giant issue 1, which is such an easy skip, especially given how busy the week ended up being.
That said, I might stay in my shop and read. There's a Poison Ivy story. I don't know who's writing it.
Oh sure, yeah.
But I might just read through it there. There's a great Margaret Savage Ivy cover that looks like it's done in pencil, like colored pencil. Very soft palette. It looks great. So yeah. Heavy week.
It is a heavy week. I have like 9 books and like half of them are annuals, so fun week next week. So this was a bit of a shorter episode, but don't worry. We had a long one last week and we'll make up for it next week with another long one. So allow us the short time. Oh, that said though, we did record a nearly 40-minute segment for David's show, the Not So New 52, which you can find on our YouTube page. Or on the audio feed for the Not So New 52. The episode that's coming out this coming Tuesday has a 40-minute segment. It may be edited down a little bit because I know he's going to tinker with it, but so you can hear me and Matt talk about the New 52 a little bit on that if you want to get more of us this week. But
love how we said it was the 15 to 20 and it being double that. So
it did, but you know what? It's because we had things to say, and this ended up being like a shorter than regular episode anyway, so it ultimately didn't really affect our recording day that much. So hey ho, that has been the show. I will take this time to thank our Patreon producers for the month. So thank you very much to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Sharp, Borden Now, Al Treisman, Christopher Moy, David Brown, and Stanley. They are all our Patreon producers for the month, so thank you once again to them. You can support us on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month and get some bonuses for your trouble. Notably at the $5 tier, you get early access to the show by a day. Whenever it's ready on the Saturday, you'll get it straight away. Usually like pretty late UK time, but if you're in like an earlier time zone, it'll be there sometime. But the way to look at it is that it's there for you as soon as you wake up on Sunday. That's the way to look at it. As opposed to sometimes Sunday night like it is for everyone else. So, but you can check us out on Patreon. You can of course support us by hitting the like button, subscribing, dinging the bell for notifications. Those things help out a lot on YouTube. And then of course the audio version, give us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes or Podcast Addict or wherever you listen to this from. All of it does help. So thank you very much. But that is us. So thank you very much once again for watching. Oh, actually, a new thing we're doing on Patreon actually is this is not a big difference, but if you do get the audio file when it goes up early on Patreon, I've started making that a little bit higher quality. It's not a big deal, but the bitrate doubles from 128 to 256. So if you're someone who would like the extra bits, you do get that at the $5 tier as well.
Hear us talk trash about Connor at a higher quality.
Yes, so do enjoy. But yes, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.